Hello everyone, live in the apocalypse. I just thought I would make a little video to talk about what's happening and the way I've been thinking about it. I guess what's inspired the video is the fact that I had planned to do a kind of walk and talk thing at Kelvingrove Park in Glasgow. And when I announced it, I just imagined maybe like 5 or 10 people would come to it. And so I tweeted out about it. And the idea obviously being that if people were to meet in a kind of loose social gathering of people just walking alongside each other at a safe distance, no handshakes, no hugs, in a wide open space with no surfaces, it's very cool, very cold, gloves, scarves, then that's probably your safest possible bet in terms of trying to maintain some kind of social connection in a time of being told to isolate and being told to distance ourselves from other people. And I knew some people might not think it was a good idea, but a lot of people are suggesting, that it's actually dangerous and that it could lead to the death of someone further down the line. And as the scales of social fear and paranoia begin to tip towards what I think will become more kind of toxic and unhelpful, then I don't want to be in anybody's firing line. If someone who was in proximity to something that I organised ends up becoming sick or unwell, or generally if there is some kind of like horrible death toll at the end of this, then people who don't necessarily want to look at where Boris Johnson's government have fallen short, 7 weeks behind most other advanced economies, and how we're approaching this, then they're going to turn around to people like me. And given that I'm going to be cut off from my recovery meetings and my fellowship that I need to stay well, I just don't want it. I don't need the unnecessary headache. But it did make me think as I begin to feel the kind of the walls closing in. I mean, perhaps unwisely, perhaps wisely, I don't know. I booked a hotel room that's not far from where I live. Now that basically anywhere that I would go and do my work is closing, and it's difficult for me to work at home because my kids are really young. So I've been staying here at night, working during the day, going home at night, and obviously fortunate enough to be in a position to do that. The hotel is very quiet. I'm in a position where I've got to still keep working though. Because I've got financial obligations and I've got family responsibilities, and I've just been thinking, if the schools have closed and the nurseries have closed, we're talking about months of this, months of isolation, months of social distancing. And I just think there are so many repercussions to that we've not really considered because everyone is looking at the virus. I mean, I realise that the virus is serious. I'm not trying to dismiss that. But I think you're going to see a spike in drug deaths. I think you're going to see a spike in relapses. I think you're going to see a spike in incidences of domestic abuse and violence. You're going to see an increase in mental health crises. And that's on top of all the things that are normally happening, which usually bring whatever domain that they impact to a point of crisis, whether it's mental health, drugs, alcoholism. I mean, our society was already at a kind of crisis point before this happened. And everyone tried to talk about something other than that fact. This society that we hail as being the most advanced and the most wealthy in the world, what is all the wealth for if we were already in crisis before the pandemic struck? We've got nothing in the bank to deal with this. Like telling people to just go home and stay home for months on end is really demonstrating a complete bankruptcy of ideas and resources to confront this. Global pandemics don't just appear out of nowhere. These are things that we have the means to observe and to some extent predict. So if you go and look into pandemics, or you go and look and study or read about epidemiology or any of these fields, these, along with the climate scientists and all the other specialists working across all the other range of fields, who are basically always trying to tell our leaders that society is always on some kind of cliff edge, environmentally, socially, politically, economically, then you'll find that as much as politicians want to talk up the fact that this just came out of nowhere, really it's just because we're so consumed with our way of life, which is about the pursuit of wealth and the pursuit of profit and the pursuit of power. We just take our eye off the ball with these other things. I mean, it's going to be, weeks or months until we get a vaccine in place. It just seems there's so many contradictions within our society, so many incentives that are in opposition to one another. The minute that you prioritise human health, the minute that you prioritise human well-being, not for the benefit of the humans, for the benefit of preserving a passive, exploitable workforce, then our lives just begin to feel like a deleted scene from 28 Days Later. I mean, what does that tell you? We have adjusted to a society where there is this constant tension that exists between what human beings need to be happy and what rich and powerful people need to extract profit from them. And the minute that dynamic is interrupted, society is literally grinding to a halt. And we're just all being told to go home. Think about what being in the house for months on end is going to be like for low-income families with young children, what it's going to be like for elderly people, people with disabilities, what it's going to be like for women in abusive households, what it's going to be like for even just your average family, you know, who materially is probably going to have the resources to absorb a lot of the stuff that's coming down the pipeline here, but at the same time, just not being able to go out, just being enclosed in a small confined space with other people all the time. It's going to drive people mad. It's going to drive people mad, and you're going to see the repercussions of it and the short-sightedness of us leaving it this late to do something about it, because so many other implications will arise from social distancing and social isolation. So many. It's kind of creepy to think that, like, I'm sitting here right now, I'm looking out my window, right? I'm looking at some hills, I'm looking at East Kilbride. And the thing that is grinding our society to a halt, I can't even see it. I can't even see it. It could be in this building, it could be on my hands, it could be on this computer. I can't even see it. I can't even perceive it. So I'm not saying it's an easy thing to deal with. But all these people out here who are talking about getting back to normality, man, give it up. There's no normal anymore, right? Like, we are now looking behind the curtain of a society that we've been told is about freedom and choice and abundance. But we can't even, despite all our innovation and all our vast wealth and all our ingenuity and all our democratic advances and all our technological insight, we couldn't be more prepared for a pandemic that I bet you specialists in a specific field have probably been predicting for a very long time. Just like the climate scientists have been predicting for a very long time that our way of life is threatened. And that actually we make ourselves more vulnerable by procrastinating from dealing with these more long-term and costly problems because they're not politically easy, or because it means that maybe people who are used to just having everything their own way might have to pay a bit more, or might be inconvenienced in some way. And this is what's happening. I feel great pressure in my profession to not say that this is a crisis not simply of public health, but it's a crisis of our economic system. There is no excuse for the British government to drag its heels to the extent that it has, and then suddenly send people into a panic by then adopting the measures that the World Health Organization and other countries have adopted weeks prior. Boris Johnson is not just considering the public health implications because of the systemic reality of the society that we live in, then he has to consider the implications for financial institutions, insurance cartels, the banks, the building societies, the creditors that own your home, own your car, that own your loans, that own your credit cards. Because our whole society and our whole way of life is contingent on us depending on them for our quality of life. Because just having a job is not enough. So you need to take out the loan to buy the house, you need to take out the loan to buy the car, you need to take out the loan just to survive. And so when we're not economically active and we're not participating in the labour market, then suddenly the money just dries up. Us being sick with coronavirus, what that means is that we're not available to be exploited, right? We're not available to be exploited. And this creates a rupture in the system. As a professional working in mainstream media, somebody with a book deal with big, reputable international publishers, there is a slight kind of almost imperceptible pressure not to say that, all that stuff I just said. To kind of make a sort of glib appeal to togetherness and national kindness will just get us through. And let's all work together, and let's not be too judgmental about the politicians who are insisting that the reason we're here is because the science has changed. Have you ever heard a more ridiculous, meaningless phrase in your life? You have to be very deeply emotionally invested in the current status quo, as well as some of the politicians presiding over it, to really come up with that sort of stuff with a straight face. And we are learning a lot from even just the first week of real disruption to our lives. So we're learning that the people we're always being told are unskilled and who don't deserve to be paid fairly and who have to live a life of constant precarity are actually the backbone of our daily lives. Your taxi drivers, your bus drivers, your nurses changing sheets, emptying bedpans. They can't even get their hands on a coronavirus test, while Hollywood royalty are tweeting about self-isolating and contracting the coronavirus because they confirmed that they tested positive through the best test kit that money can buy. We've got doctors, GPs speaking anonymously through sections of the media that are still willing to really challenge the government and saying that it's like operating in a war zone, and that our frontline health staff are risking their lives every time they step out, and that the NHS, the way that it's been funded and the way that it's been reorganised under the current government, means that all of the necessary changes that we would have to make in order to adopt some sort of effectiveness and efficiency in the face of this are not possible because the staff aren't available, or because the NHS trusts all compete with one another in a kind of free market scenario, when really it should just be a centralised national health service. And what else are we learning? Well, we're learning the hard way that if you're not in a union and you don't own property and you're not worth a great deal, then the government doesn't really have to consider your needs or concerns. So people who own homes, they're going to get the backing of the government because that protects the banks who really own the homes, right? So a lot of the kind of ABC1 middle class are being looked after as you would expect. But this is just kind of round two of socialism for the rich and the affluent, and austerity for the poor and the sick and the vulnerable. That is what's going to come out of this. So you've got businesses rightly receiving rates relief, and you've got businesses rightly receiving a relaxed tax system. And then at the same time, you've got renters who are handing over more than half of their income to landlords every month, not even being dealt with rhetorically, never mind through actual policy. And you've got parents, single parents, people that are living constant in-work poverty. The benefit system obviously subsidising the low wages of a lot of these companies that are now going to be writing begging letters to the government to bail them out. And these workers and parents have got to live on 90 quid a week, statutory sickness pay. And we're all supposed to be grateful because the government is now going to backdate it to the 13th of March and won't make you wait 3 days until you're allowed to be paid. Like, don't let the Chancellor fool you, right? I know everybody kind of wants the government to be competent and wants to think that the government's going to take care of them. The government is going to take care of the banks, the insurance companies, and all the people who are in constant economic transaction with them. The people who are trying to buy their homes, the people who own cars, the people who, who have disposable incomes, who are electorally lucrative. So, if you want to return to normality, count me out. Count me out. I don't want to return to a system where the minute that human health and well-being is prioritised, the walls start closing in. And I know that this is an exceptional circumstance. However, given that the 2008 financial crash, which we're still feeling the reverberations of to this day, politically, culturally, socially, is only just receding behind us. And then you've got the looming threat of climate change over the horizon line. You have to expect that these kind of planetary events are going to increase in frequency. And rather than a return to normality, we're going to need a new normal where people who want to make profit and wealth have to live in some sort of equilibrium with people who lead ordinary lives, who have ordinary jobs and ordinary concerns. And we need people in media to stop acting like such a proposition is radical. Really do. So that's what I think. Anyway, under professional, imagined social pressure, my opinion might change at some point. And I might write this stuff off to being angry, or immature, or unwell. And I might even believe that, right? Just know this is how I actually feel, right? This is how I actually feel. This is how I always feel. This is how I should feel. This is how any rational person should feel. If you're in media and your only line is, everyone just chill till we find out what's happening, then that is just a byproduct of how insulated you are from a lot of the effects of this. By all means, don't run around raging. Don't be dicks to each other. Try to exercise objectivity and rationality. But sometimes some good clean anger is absolutely what's necessary. When you're really aware of why you're angry and how you're going to channel that anger, then it's quite an efficient, robust energy source. So don't let people gaslight you into thinking that what's going on right now is fair. And don't let anybody gaslight you into thinking that had we adopted some other less unfettered form of capitalism, that sufficient resources wouldn't have been deployed in advance of a pandemic, that we would have some sort of pandemic warning system, that we would have some sort of protocol for dealing with something like this. Because all of that stuff is absolutely possible. It's just that we're so focused on deregulating everything, privatising everything, fragmenting everything, cutting public services when we should be throwing financial speculators in jail. You have to consider the fact that what works for your landlord and what works for your bank and what works for your employer almost never works out for you. That's the tension. That is the tension, that is the conflict that defines our society. Is pointing that out being a communist? Is pointing that out mean you want to send people to the gulags? Absolutely not. Christ, even some of the multi-billionaires out there are clocking on to the fact that this isn't sustainable. Right? It's not sustainable. Because like I said earlier, the rich can't stay rich and they can't get richer without a working class that value can be extracted from at the end of the day. And that's the reason why everyone is being protected right now. Because without us participating in the dance, then nothing happens. Nothing can happen. Bye.